Welcome back to OD Skills. This week and next week, I would like to focus on the organizational role that is a full-time NCRP professional. And hopefully some of you will take the time to explore and learn more, because this could be a career path for you. A very much in demand, highly compensated, and if done skillfully and well, rewarding career path. At the same time, with what I just said, normally comes great demand and responsibility. And today what I'd like to do is to simply introduce this role to you with some of the basics. Your reading and your teaching and learning activities in the reader will help you deepen your understanding, explore some of the real-world ethical challenges these people face. Now, I must confess, even though I have Norwegian roots, ancestry, this Swedish Scandinavian word is one that I still wonder about pronunciation. Now, when I look at this, I see Om. Have any of you studied yoga? And you see Om as well. So I'm going to say Onsbut. And if some of you are Scandinavian and want to help us with this pronunciation, I welcome your assistance. The Onsbut, as it sounds, is a conflict resolution profession that started in Sweden many years ago. And if any of you are familiar with Scandinavian societies today, you will know that they are relatively progressive compared to the rest of the world. In fact, Norway, with its Nobel Peace Prize, is still the world's most trusted mediator nation state. Well, this position began in Sweden, its neighbor. And it began as what is often called a people's prosecutor, an independent branch. And I don't know if it actually was seen as technically within the government, given, Scandinavian countries are all countries with royalty, much like the UK, Britain. But the role was, regardless, to investigate complaints against the government, against the royalty, to ensure that those in charge were performing their duties and serving the people according to their mandate. We could compare that to citizens' oversight panels with police forces and prisons in the United States. We could compare to state and federal attorney generals, which also do independent investigations alleging violation of various laws. And in the ADR world, alternative dispute resolution world, the ombuds would be seen as a quasi-legal role. So it's not usually a lawyer, a judge investigating, but a full-time professional in NCRP. There are a variety of forms that this role takes, and I would like to introduce a couple today. One is the classical role that was introduced in Sweden many years ago. And that is the role where the full-time conflict resolution professional investigates citizen complaints. You will see this in the United States within our governments. Usually most of our nursing homes, assisted living facilities will have plaques introducing you to this role and encouraging you to file complaints with this office if you have any problems or concerns. I, years ago, went to one of these people in the state where I was working because a child care facility was violating a number of laws. And I asked that independent, impartial person to investigate my concerns. They did that more than once over a period of years and eventually shut down that child care facility because it found itself unable to treat children, institutionalized children, with the respect, with the legal rights they deserved. We could see much more of this in our society today. We need this impartial investigator role. If you see the classical Onsbuts at work, you will see what you would call a whistleblower, someone who has been mandated to investigate the complaints and then publish the findings so that the public will be aware, along with recommendations, hopefully to reform the system so that it fixes itself, but in my personal case, possibly to shut down a system which cannot operate within the law. Now, the other version of this is the organizational Onsbuts. And before I talk about this role, let me just wrap up about the classical. In India, this office is referred to as Lokpal. And if you have been studying India in recent years, you will see that the youth have organized and started a nonviolent revolution to clean up the corruption within their government at all levels, including the politician level. And the result was that they empowered a man who followed Gandhi's example, a retired military man, and they were able to successfully elect an anti-corruption politician in Delhi. Unfortunately, the politicians rejected the scrutiny of the Lokpal, and this is the problem that this office faces around the world. Now, I would wonder how many of them are zealous advocates for justice and legality. Many are probably seeking to preserve their jobs against very powerful forces. And here in India, the politicians rejected the scrutiny, publicity, public exposure of the Lokpal. I also had an Onsbuts from South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa, approached me years ago because the politicians in South Africa were interfering with his impartiality and independence as well. So it sounds like a very noble and wonderful position, but it's not an easy one to practice or live. The organizational form is probably the form that you are going to find most prevalent today, and maybe that's part of the reason. Though if you are interested in the classical, there are professional organizations in the United States, and it's particularly alive in Canada and European nations. So you might study what's going on there. The organizational is the group that I have worked the most closely with because they approached me years ago to help do research with their professional group, the International Onsbut Association. And I would recommend, as I have to former students, that you check them out because they are often advertising jobs, networking to get an entry-level position there. Might be something some of you would really relish. The organizational, though, is very different than the classical from Sweden. The organizational is more of an informal, internal advisor to leaders, as well as a mediator and a conflict resolution trainer. They do not have the ability, in fact, it's considered unethical for them to do any kind of quasi-legal investigation with reporting. Now, they might do something for the leadership of an organization, but that would all be confidential, done behind closed doors. Now, I had a student in NCRP years ago approach me. She was from Japan, and her father was a CEO of one of the successful Japanese corporations. And she came to me and she said, I don't know how these organizational professionals are able to operate ethically. But if they could operate impartially, independently, in just ways that truly address internal organizational power abuse and need, employee concerns, customer concerns, they could be transformative. They would be so important. So she joined me actually in my initial study where I did a survey to ask how they were embracing these challenges, how they were able to work informally, privately within organizations. The results are in the reading, so I won't repeat them here. But let me tell you where you will find these people. Universities and colleges, including the CSU. We don't have one here, but we do have the Onsbut at Long Beach State, San Jose State, and other CSUs. They will investigate and respond to, attempt to mediate student grade appeals, for example. I was part of one of those processes at UC Berkeley. They will also present themselves as responding to employee concerns. Now, my own experience, it may be a token role. I have approached some of these people over the years, and some have privately laughed about their relative lack of power to take on, the prestigious academic institutions of the world. For example, UC Irvine's medical school has had regular scandal. So has UCLA's medical school had some problems, and they have very strong offices attempting to do this informal work to prevent these scandals, these problems. We will explore how they attempt to do what they do in more detail later. You will also find these organizational people in government agencies. Our big federal agencies often have them. The United Nations has them. The United Nations international agencies like the World Food Bank, the World Health Organization, they all have these offices. And corporations have embraced this role as well. I think I've given you enough of an introduction today to lay the foundation for our future studies. Have a great week.